10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
Not to get off track here, but I feel like we're in the Truman Show. We're in a snow globe and they just shook it up.
Welcome to reality.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the current, reigning, defending, and unarguably the number one show on True Frequency Radio. It's on every Monday night from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific. That's 9 to 11 Eastern. And I am your host, Jaron from Jeranism. I'm joined tonight by quite a few guests. First, we have David Weiss. David, thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful day outside. I don't know how it is in New York.
Beautiful. It's raining and snowing and gray here, but I'll call that beautiful if you like.
All right. You're still living, though, so I think it's pretty beautiful. We also have joining us the great Jason Lindgren. Jason, what's up, my friend?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me back once more.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Lots to talk about this evening. And we also have joining us a great friend of the show. She's been on numerous times. She's actually probably the most censored person next to Crow. She's another one of those people that if you put her name in your title on a YouTube video, you can kiss off ever having any monetization immediately. I wonder why. She is Sofia Smallstorm. Sophia, so happy you're here joining us.
I didn't know those facts about myself.
Well, don't put your name in any of your YouTube videos, I'll tell you that much.
I don't make YouTube videos. I let other people do that. But Jaron, thank you for inviting me. I'm very glad to be here. And I am reeling because I watched some news about coronavirus, and I can't believe how scripted and brilliant these people are.
Or diabolical. Yeah, there's a lot of... Jeez.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Let me ask you the important question. Do you have any toilet paper?
You know, before this all started, I actually bought like a 12-pack or something, and I have it. I never had to worry. But Trump just signed an executive order to prevent and prohibit hoarding.
And the price gouging going on. I'm sure everybody's seeing that as well. I guess can't be surprised, huh? It's pretty.
What does that executive order do? If you hoard, they'll come and take it from you?
Well, David, tonight what I learned in just 10 minutes, I was gulping some dinner and I turned on a couple of news stations. It is incredible. The mayor of LA is, first of all, seeking donations to help needy Angelenos via MasterCard. They're seeking $10 million. Neighbors helping neighbors. It's so easy to donate. You don't have to leave the house. Just use your credit card. So all these third-party network processors are getting very rich by taking these small 3 and 4% fees off everything that we do. And then they also said that this coronavirus will go away because of our actions and our hearts, which means that the more you comply and the more you show generosity and the more you give, like what are they going to do with $10 million? Do we know? We don't know. So you're supposed to sit home, donate like mad, order online from Amazon, and if you're worried about your future, start an online business with Amazon, because there are now webinars you can do to learn how to do that. And the LAPD is saying there's not unrest. Actually, there is more social order than we've ever had before because of all this social distancing that everybody's learning so nicely. So the LA mayor of Los Angeles said it's very important if you're out and about to go up to people and say, you guys are standing too close.
Wow. I heard on the news this morning that they're calling the Amazon workers our heroes. So that's news to me. I didn't know that the people working at the front lines of Amazon are now our heroes because they're getting us all of our merchandise. This much needed merchandise in this apocalypse is coming to your door. And they're our heroes. So
Does it feel like idiocracy is getting closer and closer by the day?
I'm just ashamed. I'm like ashamed. It's like disappointing to me, this whole thing. And I still am holding on to my prediction that we are going to turn a corner in about a week and things will get back to normal. Now, I could be completely wrong. A lot of people will say I am, and that this is heading downhill and this is the end of all things and this is the new norm. I still think it's going to get back to normal. I think that, but I could be wrong. You tell me what you guys think. And I really want to get into how people can stay healthy. Because one thing I know for sure, and all this information that's coming out, which is great information, is that viruses are just another hoax. They're not what we've been told. The way we get sick is not what we've been told. And it's really about building your immune system, which is what we've been talking about for years. And what David talks about and what Sophia's been talking about for years is how to live a healthier life so that you don't succumb to illness. But it's great hearing these things come out, and it's just more and more we're just noticing that we've been lied to on a massive, massive scale. And all that's happening to me is I'm realizing that scale is more massive than I thought. How much we're being lied to. And I know Jason and Crow had Don Lester and David on. I don't remember his last name. But they wrote the book, What Really Makes You Ill, and how everything you thought you knew about disease was wrong. That's great. These are the kind of things that we need to start talking about, because all these false and fabricated crises, the one thing that I'm noticing is that the wise seem to be getting wiser and the ignorant will persist in their ignorance. The sad thing is the numbers game. Unfortunately, that group of wiser and wiser is so far the minority, and the group that is persisting in this ignorance and fear. David, by the way, great video that you put out today, or that was a few hours ago, right?
Oh, thank you.
Yes, the truth about fear, because you're absolutely right. That is their weapon, and man, is it effective.
Can I jump in and say a couple of things?
Please.
Viruses are not a hoax. What we are hearing today about viruses is very closely connected to the panic they have created in us about computer viruses. That a virus is something bad. If your computer gets a virus, you have to get it cleaned out because it's going to ruin your computer. And that viruses in biology cause disease. My own personal belief from what I've studied, and I am not a white coat, I don't have a PhD, and I don't work in a lab, but I have closely studied this whole virology field for a while. And Jaron, I would posit that viruses, because they are proteinaceous and crystalline, and they are made to order when the body gets in a situation of, or cells start dying or becoming injured or damaged. They are subcellular components that, as we read in the mainstream, have a capacity to get into a cell and replicate themselves. Now, primarily, what I would posit here is that viruses are bioelectrical, they are piezoelectrical, they have electromagnetic capabilities and potential. And if you look at the page on Wikipedia for tobacco mosaic virus, which was the very first virus they ever really studied, it affects tomato plants, nightshades like eggplant, tobacco, and Dmitry Ivanovsky in the late 1800s in Russia was looking at tobacco mosaic virus. And it's also called spot disease. So these plants develop spots on their leaves. And when you take this spotty material and you smear it on a battery electrode, look at the wiki page. Look at it right now. Go to the bottom under investigative uses, and you will see that it has the ability to enhance the electrical capability of the battery 6 times. So when I read that, I went, oh my God, there's something that viruses do that's electromagnetic that increases the potential, the electrical potential of something that they are going into or being put on. So that made me think that when viruses go into cells and they replicate themselves, the body is extremely intelligent. It doesn't make stuff for no reason. And if stuff that it makes has any kind of bioelectric capability, piezoelectric capability, it's serving a purpose. So my thought was that viruses actually are healing agents because they're a little like nano batteries. They're smaller than cells. They're protein containing and crystalline material. They're DNA ordered. They're coded for. And it means that when there is a lot of cellular injury, whether it's from disease or whatever, viruses are deployed. They are created and deployed.
So they're more of a body reaction, not a problem.
A healing agent.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah, they're a healing agent. They are not at all what we're being told, that they cause disease. They actually increase the cell's electrical capabilities so that it can go into high repair mode. Because that's what biology is. On the cellular level, it's all it is electrical exchange. It's the uptake of adenosine triphosphate, which the mitochondria are supposed to be making. But in fact, the mitochondria making ATP, which is the fuel or the currency of the cell, what they're really doing is they are encouraging and ensuring the negative charge, the electron content of the cytoplasm, and the mitochondria actually create a gel-like state in the watery part of the cell, which is the cytoplasm. Now that's not by accident either. So the cytoplasm of the cell has to have enough negative charge. Negative charge means presence of electrons. Presence of electrons means electricity. So in my view, viruses add to the electrical capabilities of the cell in order that it can repair and heal itself.
So if the way we've been taught about viruses, do you think that that's just all a plan of Big Pharma and, you know, the whole germ theory? I mean, I'm sure Big Pharma loves germ theory because it's kind of like you described with computers, that when you describe it that way, then when you get a virus, people need to buy an antivirus software. They need to go out and they need to get this medicine. They need to get their Alka-Seltzer. They need to get something to kill it. Is that why it's been perpetrated the way it has been, or what's your theory on that?
I think, Jaron, that they did do that deliberately. They twinned the technological virus with the biological virus and made us fear both of them and made us want to get protective measures for both of them, which in the case of biological viruses would be vaccines, right?
Right.
So they've been telling us since they brought out this germ theory of disease, which was not really originated by Louis Pasteur. There was somebody before him. And I've written several newsletters about all of this. I could drag them out, but you'd hear a big shuffling of paper. So I'm just going to talk off the top of my head.
Okay.
But there's a big debate historically between Antoine Béchamp, who said that it's the terrain of the body, meaning the soil, the actual cellular environment of the body that gets sort of like under operating. It's less than ideal. And that's basically sickness. So I put it like this: when your rate of cell death exceeds your rate of cell repair, the body, it could be because you have injured yourself. It could be because you have exposed yourself to an outside force like radiation, like chemical invasion. The body first and foremost deploys a tried and true protocol that it has called inflammatory response. Now, mainstream doctors and even alternative doctors who are on the progressive side, they make a habitual error. They tell us that inflammation causes disease, but that's once again like looking at viruses backwards. Wherever there's cellular injury, inflammation is immediately what the body does. Let me explain in terms of, for instance, like you sprain your ankle. What happens? Your ankle puffs up, it hurts, it gets very stiff, and you can't use it. So that's called the inflammatory response. And what your body has done, and it does this everywhere. It does this if you have a quote-unquote disease condition or chemical invasion or whatever. It will suddenly blow itself up, basically, inside. It will create bigger space for blood flow and for lymphatic drainage. It will, in the case of a physical injury, stiffen the area so that it's rigid and painful and you don't move it. It will add heat because frequently you have the feeling of being very hot. You could run a fever. And that's just in case there is biological debris like dying cells that create the potential for bacteria to go into overdrive, and I'll explain that in a minute. And it also deploys this whole sequence of battalions which are different types of cells, eosinophils, neutrophils, macrophages. They all come in one after another, and they all have different jobs to do. The first line of defense in this process of battalion cells is called, the process is called chemotaxis. The first line of cells eats organic debris, dying cells. The second line comes in and it eats those soldier cells, that battalion, it consumes them, and then it does its job, which could be releasing histamines. Then the next one comes in and eats those cells and releases antihistamines. And then there are battalions that follow, and they're carrying repair materials. So this chemotaxis process is supposed to be the first address to cellular injury. If it can't do the job, meaning if the rate of cellular death is exceeding the rate of chemotaxis repair, then the bacteria that are living in your body, which they're massive in number. We are only 20% human. We're 80% bacteria and microbes and other forms of life that we've integrated into us. So these bacteria go to work and they start chomping at the organic debris in order to help the body's inflammatory process. Now, if the bacteria have so much to eat that they over-multiply, number one, they might die in their own waste products because those are very, very toxic as well. So bacteria keep themselves in check because they can have like ammonia-filled waste products. For instance, that's just one element to their waste that would kill them. But if our bloodstream picks up the waste slime that bacteria make, because bacteria are multiplying every second, and if that material, that waste material, gets into our bloodstream, we then have what's called a bacterial infection. And I want to tell you, that would lead to something called sepsis, for instance, and perhaps septic shock. So the number one killer in hospitals overall, 50% of all hospital deaths, it's never recorded as such, but 50% of death in hospital is caused by sepsis, bacterial infection. And that's because when you're in the hospital, those people give you no support other than glucose and saline drip, salt and sugar. You should be in sunlight. You should be in the fresh air. You should be having good water. You should be having tons of minerals and all kinds of vitamin C and other nutrients. So I'm going to stop now because I've been talking up a storm.
No, I love it. David, do you have anything to say?
No, Sophia always makes my mind work extra hard. So when she speaks, I listen the best I can, and then I process, and then we discuss again later.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so rattle on.
Please.
So you have these enormous legions of bacteria working for you. And one thing I want to say here, because it's very interesting, is that bacteria are pleomorphic. Look it up. Pleiommorphic, pleomorphic. It means that bacteria have the capacity to change their type based on the environment they're in and the food that they're eating. So if you put a big, huge buffet of dying cells in front of bacteria, depending on what tissues those cells are from, the bacteria will morph. For instance, they can go under a microscope, you can see this. It's even on YouTube. They can go from being rod-shaped to cone-shaped or spiral-shaped, depending on what they're being fed. And that is what causes doctors to make the erroneous conclusion that this person who is sick with this disease has this type of bacterium in their body. That means this bacteria caused the disease. And they assign to all these diseases different names, when in fact there's only one disease. That's it, one disease in the whole world. And that is failure of the mitochondria in a particular type of cell. Mitochondria are not producing enough energy through a process called aerobic respiration or oxygen phosphorylation. They can't produce enough ATP using oxygen in the nucleus. So the cell relies on other methods of energy production, and I can go into those, but they don't last long. So depending on where this mitochondrial failure shows up in the body, it's given a different name, and that name is the name of a disease. So if it shows up in certain tissues of the eye, it's called one thing. If it shows up in tissues of the spinal cord sheath, it's called another thing. There's really only one disease. And viruses, along with bacteria, are another mechanism the body uses in order to address this kind of cell death.
Sophia, I have a question. I've been heard several times news reports from different sources talking about how to avoid catching this coronavirus. And they're saying that the virus lives, it sticks to skin, it goes into, it spreads through water, it sticks to any surface that someone touches. So if they sneeze in their hand and touch a doorknob, it'll live there. Can you explain how completely untrue this is, or if there's any truth to it?
Well, viruses are inorganic and they're not alive, so they don't live anywhere. Whether they're exuded by your body, remember they're contained inside you. If they are exuded by the body somehow on, spittle or mucus or exhalation of breath or sweat, I really don't know. They tried this on us with HIV. HIV, back in the 80s, human immunodeficiency virus, they tried to tell us was the cause of this very severe wasting disease called AIDS. And in fact, it wasn't. I want to jump to that for a minute, David. HIV doesn't even exist. They made it up. There is no virus that causes AIDS. AIDS was caused by something totally different. It was a lifestyle disease, and it had no relationship to anything that you could transmit through body fluids. But the HIV experiment was done to sexually distance us. And now we're getting the COVID-19 experiment to socially distance us. So the HIV test, the blood test, was a non-specific antibody test. Your Th2 immune system manufactures antibodies. It's the second line of defense after your Th1 immune system, which is your gut, it's your skin, it's your coughing reflex, vomiting. It's different things that cells mediate, mucus, whatever. That's the first deployment of defense when things get into your body. Th2 is the antibody system. That's the second. It's a little bit more complicated deployment of defense. So when you got an HIV test, there could be anywhere from 75 to 100 different conditions that you might have that would give you a positive result on the HIV test. And that was pretty much undisputed, which is why when you got a positive result on the HIV test, they sent you back to get the test again 6 months later. So antibodies in your blood for this, that, or the other thing. For instance, if you were pregnant, you could have a positive HIV test. If you had some kind of flu going on, same thing. Kidney troubles, same thing. Hepatitis, same thing. 100 different conditions. And so after you registered positive from the HIV test, then they'd start playing with your mind.
If you were tested positive right now for corona or whatever they're calling it, COVID-19 or whatever, how concerned would you be?
If I tested positive?
Yeah. Let's say you weren't feeling well, you had a little fever, you went to the hospital, and you tested positive. Would you be any more concerned than you would be any previous year?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't submit myself to a test like that.
I knew you would say that.
It's a DNA grab, David.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah. So, but if I were dumb enough to do that, or if they pinned me down and did that to me and I tested positive, I really believe, David, that as long as you are conscious and can advocate for yourself, you can make decisions as to what you want done. Right now, they are using some very, very powerful, very toxic antiviral drugs. John Rappaport did an article about that a couple of days ago and another one today. And one of these drugs that they used on the early SARS patients, SARS in 2003, was severe acute, slightly redundant, respiratory syndrome. They gave those people an antiviral drug called Ribavirin, ribavirin, VIRIN, and it was toxic. It killed them. And these were, elderly people coming in with respiratory ailments and flu-like symptoms. Now, I will say that if it is true that they have deployed this COVID-19, which I think is a name given to a plan to tank the economy, to an economic heist, COVID-19. Hey, if I were making it up, I would say, all right, COVID-19 stands for Covert International Destruction or International Devastation in 2019, because that's when it started. So this is actually another one of these operations, but this is a global operation tanking the economy, masquerading as a contractable virus that has put everybody into a panic.
Hold that thought right there. That's some great info, and we've got more great info coming your way, so don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with Sofia Smallstorm, and then later, if you want to ask Sofia a question, tonight is the night. You'll be able to call in and ask her anything you want. We've also got Jason and David, but we have our first break coming up, so we'll be right back after that. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw.
It's amazing how people have been raving about iAlife all over Facebook. They've been posting their testimonials just because they want to get the word out because it's worked so well for them. If you're not familiar with iAlife, it's a 99% pure CBD oil. But the secret is the synergy between the hemp and the ayahuasca vine, the non-psychoactive component of the ayahuasca tea. We recently received an email from a wife whose husband has Parkinson's. For the first time, he's been able to sleep through the entire night. Another customer reported that they're no longer using NSAIDs because their tennis elbow has been relieved with iAlife. The reports have been phenomenal and much more than we ever expected. Everyone should have access to this. That's why if you head on over to iAlife.com right now and use coupon code TFR, we'll give you $5 towards your order. And we'll even ship it worldwide. That's iAlife.com, AYA life.com.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER to get $10 off your first box. As a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER.
Travis Cook, America's Evil Genius, here to invite you to join us every Tuesday afternoon here on Truth Frequency Radio. No, on our show you will not see a bunch of 3-piece suits or a cocktail party, and you certainly won't see a bunch of inside the Beltway banter. But you will see eye-gouging, crotch-kicking, no-holds-barred political discussion, the likes of which you won't see anywhere else in media. America's Evil Genius. We come to you every Tuesday from the outskirts of war-torn St. Louis, Missouri, where there's always a good race rider sex scandal just around the corner. Join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and noon on the left coast right here on TFRLive.com. America's Evil Genius, Travis Cook, on TruthFrequencyRadio.com.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the Truth Frequency. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
right, welcome back. You're listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw. We have Sofia Smallstorm here, Jason Lingren, and of course, David and I. Quick look at some super chats. Thank you very much to Dan Tran for a super chat, big one. John Flaherty said Jason has the coolest hair. your hair is getting super chats now, Jason. This is uncharted territory. On the up, Josh Brown's Spiral Life. Josh Brown's going to be doing a Thursday interview with me. I don't believe this Thursday, but the next Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's correct. And John Flaherty also, he said, Josh Brown said, totally agree with Sofia. She knows her stuff. Great show already, guys. And John Flaherty came back and said, Sofia, gradual exposure to cold will heal. Not sure exactly what that was pertaining to. I'm sure something that she said. But Jason, tell me what your thoughts on some of this are. How are things in your area, and what are you thinking about all this?
Well, I was out today, and I'll tell you, the craziest thing I've ever seen was driving through the French Quarter and seeing the entire place boarded up and empty, and there are more drifters walking around than just people that live there. People who actually pay rent and things like that. That was the creepiest thing. I actually drove down Bourbon Street. My daughter shot a video while we were doing it. Craziest thing I've ever seen in this area. But I have friends in several places, and I've kind of gotten what might be called conflicting information. And I'm not saying what I do or don't stand behind, because I'm not a scientist or a doctor or anything like that. I can just report on what's been being told to me.
Right.
I have a very good friend, somebody I've known most of my life, who is a nurse. And she said that their COVID floor on the hospital where she does work is quite busy, that she has some good friends that are taking care of people. And she's saying the big problem with what they in general are experiencing is all respiratory. Like, that's what's making this so bad. Mm-hmm. Take that as you will. She has not worked with a patient herself one-on-one. She deals more with elderly people, but as soon as she's like got it in front of her face, she's going to say, okay, this is exactly what I saw, and this is what I didn't see. So I've got someone on the front lines in a hospital who's going to give me information. That being said, I was also speaking with Clint Richardson today. I don't know if you guys know who he is.
Doesn't sound familiar.
Real big with the straw man identity and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
And he's kind of giving me a slightly different view. He's a little more mainstreamy when it comes to viruses and things like that, as far as that goes. Now, I definitely lean more towards the viruses are not as described by the mainstream. That seems to be what a lot of people who are pretty awake to stuff seem to think. And I definitely am more willing to hang my hat in that camp than taking the mainstream point of view with vaccines and all that stuff. But the things I'm getting are that this was some sort of bioengineered thing, which leads me to believe that this is a controlled, what would you want to call it? They're trying to see how far they can take things.
Well, if what's happened in the last week is any sign, they can go as far as they want with this.
I mean, yes, because people are buying it. This is the problem.
Right. Jason, can you ask your friend in the hospital how many of those people are on ventilators? Because every news report, every time Trump speaks, they're talking about we don't have enough ventilators. We don't have enough ventilators. But I don't know. I haven't heard of how many people are needing ventilators. I know people that have tested positive.
We already talked about it, actually. She called me late last night to tell me what's going on because it freaked her out what her friends who are nurses are saying. This is what we're dealing with. The ventilator thing, she said the big problem with the respiratory thing is that they're having to max out the ventilators to push air into their lungs. Like she said, this almost never happens. It's that bad. Like their bodies are reacting terribly to whatever it is. And they're having to crank these things up to 100% just to get the in and out of the airflow. Wow. Yeah, so that is the big problem. And she said this is actually scary, and not much bothers her. She's a pretty super chill person normally. So that's what I'm hearing from her. I do trust her, but this is secondhand information, so take it as you will. I'm just trying to be cool with what I'm being given and passing it forward. If I don't see something myself with my own eyes, obviously I cannot say 100% this is what I can stand behind. So yes, the respirator thing seems to be the big deal. Clint Richardson is working on a documentary, and apparently all this is going in. He's been doing a lot of bioweapons research. Oh, the other thing my nurse friend told me, she'd actually mentioned this stuff to me back in January. I have actually known about this since then, but I think everybody knows I'm not a panicky person, and I don't I just don't freak out about things. I'm super chill, but she did warn me that there was something over in China, and that was being kept on the down low, that doctors over there were being bumped off, that kind of thing. And that's what this is. So again, leaning towards some kind of bioengineered thing, whatever that thing actually is. I'd really like to know.
Well, the only thing that makes sense to me about that, and I would love to get Sophia's opinion on this, is when you talk bioweapons, something like that, it seems like, well, then whatever this is would be something that we really haven't seen before. And that seems to fit kind of what you're talking about, some sort of respiratory thing that people just, at least older people, can't recover from. To me, it just doesn't make sense that there'd be some new disease that just pops up and spreads out, unless it's something created. So, Sophia, tell me what your thoughts are on this possibly being something created, or you think the whole idea is being created more than a disease?
I will just start here. Let's say you were planning this phony or artificial pandemic. If they rolled this out in October, November, December, which is high flu season, and there's a reason for that's flu season. Flu is not a virally caused disease. Arthur Furstenberg's book, The Invisible Rainbow, will tell you that flu is primarily generated by electricity in the homes, which is actually quite believable when you read his book. But we didn't have anything called flu until our domestic lives were electrified. So let's just go on and let's remember that there are late season colds and flu. I know people, and I myself have in my life gotten sick, not in October, November, December, but in February or even March. So the late season flus and respiratory ailments, which often occur in elderly people because they're susceptible more than others, and they break down and remain broken down more than others, I would suggest that they waited to roll this out for the late winter flu season. And those people, you should ask your nurse friend if any of them have already received any kind of medical treatments, any kind of antiviral drugs, prescription drugs, because these are being used in an experimental, off-label kind of way. And John Rappaport, he names a lot of them. I will read the names if you want. He has listed in today's email that he sent out that these drugs, not only are they toxic, that doctors are prescribing, this is called iatrogenic death, and it's a very common cause of death. Some of the names are chloroquine, which we've been reading about, remdesivir, ribavirin, favipiravir, lopinavir, ritonavir, hydroxychloroquine, sofosbuvir, corticosteroids, oseltamivir, and zanamivir. Now, I did an analysis of how these drugs are given their names. They're not written by Beelzebub, but there are actually reasons for the AVIRs and the whatever, the suffixes, the prefixes. But they all have adverse effects, Rappaport said. And so what happened on March 17th, just a few days ago, is that the U.S. Department of Health published in the Federal Register a notice of declaration conferring broad-based immunity from tort. Tort means wrongs in the legal terminology, including product liability. So the broad-based immunity from tort litigation for those engaging in activities related to medical countermeasures against COVID-19. So that immunity extends to any claim of loss caused by, arising out of, relating to, or resulting from the manufacture, distribution, administration, or use of medical countermeasures. So this is wild. This is the same tort immunity they have granted to vaccine manufacturers. Now they've given it to people who make and administer, meaning doctors who prescribe drugs to deal with COVID-19 conditions, which are highly toxic and have been known to kill since 2003 when they first tried ribavirin on the SARS patients. It killed them. It just was a lethal drug. And this is the same drug they used in Italy this time around, just very recently, on their COVID-19 patients, and that's how they ended up with all those deaths. So I would just say it's very easy when you're on the front line and you see people in bad shape and you're shoving respirators into them and you're being told X, Y, and Z is happening, and you don't have the presence of mind to add it all up and to really dig and say who prescribed what to whom. Mm-hmm. That's very serious, omission. You can't jump to conclusions until you sit there and you look at the path that led to this very, painful and difficult condition of this patient that's in front of you.
And we don't even know how
Sophia, if there's anything specific you want me to ask her, because we've been keeping in touch since this really got nuts, you are very welcome to email me, and I will do what I can to find out.
Well, I would send her John Rappaport's 2 most recent pieces, along with, there's a white paper kind of a thing. It's actually somebody's chapter 1 to his new book on SARS. And that I have that whole chapter. So if I get your email, I'll send you that material and you can send it to her and she can read it and decide, whether this is applicable or not.
When you get admitted to the hospital, tested positive for this disease, do they vaccinate you? Do they, immediately give you drugs? Could you ask her that, Jason?
To my knowledge, no. What she was also telling me, if you want me to go into some of the more gory details, she's telling me there aren't enough testing kits for this thing, and there's also not enough what they call, I think it's called PPE. It's the masks and everything that goes to this. She's saying that there's a severe shortage, and for a while they weren't even telling the nurses to wear anything. They were just sending them in to take care of the patients, which I was like, you got to be kidding me. And now all of a sudden they're getting very serious about it. You got to wear your bandana and this and that, whatever it is they've got. I guess it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. But something's up. This whole thing just seems really, really weird. And as I get more information, I'll gladly be sharing it with everyone.
Jason, let me tell you that on March 16, I do surf television while I eat dinner. And usually I'm so disgusted I have to shut it off promptly because...
Can't blame you there.
It baffles me. I don't understand how you would have to be a complete moron not to see through 99% of what they're talking about. But anyway, this was the Dr. Oz show, and I'm sorry to say, but I've concluded he's a complete shill. And he had this other complete shill on. David will clap when he hears this name, Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Oh, yeah.
And he is... Chief medical correspondent for CNN. David, tell us about the Contagion movie, and then I will continue.
You guys saw that Sanjay Gupta, the CNN doctor who's talking about social distancing and coronavirus, is the same actor that played in the 2011 or 2011?
2013, I think.
Maybe. Whatever the year was, Contagion movie, where he's talking about social distancing and the virus. Was it even the coronavirus he was talking about? I mean, it's the same thing. He's an actor.
And David, and they were administering ribavirin in that clip. I put it on my blog, sofiasmallstorm.com. And you're right. I can't believe it. Sanjay Gupta he's got a role in this movie, for God's sake. And today, Sanjay Gupta is babbling on about social distancing and all these things, and he can't remember that in 2011 he was given lines to read in a Hollywood movie. So Sanjay Gupta on March 16th was on the Dr. Oz show, and he opined, I'll say opined to give him the benefit of the doubt, that most of America will be infected with coronavirus within 1 year. Hey, excuse me? How do you know? Right?
Mathematics. They love to use this mathematics. 70% of people will get it. 1% of people will die. They love to use their math, which doesn't take anything into account. Of course, if you stayed inside your house, if you didn't get somebody sick, if you do get somebody sick, if one person gets 10 people sick, it's just ridiculous that they try and pass that off as real science.
Now, he also said that coronavirus, after 1% of the population is infected, so let's do our 347 million, what is 1%? The growth becomes exponential, not linear. But concurrently, and this is a very old theory they brought out in the HIV days that I actually read in Newsweek and I have never forgotten. Sanjay Gupta told us that as the virus catches in the population, it also becomes less infectious and milder. And the reason is that now that it has so many places to live, now this is not a real theory, this is just something that they should put in the movies, as far as I'm concerned. But as it finds all these places to live, it becomes happy. And it says, I'm not going to be so lethal anymore because I got a lot of room here. I have many rooms that I'm renting. So that's their logic for why it becomes less infectious and milder. Now, he said other things, and I was actually rolling on the floor laughing, trying to write accurate notes at the same time. But he said that coronavirus may not like warm weather, folks. It likes cooler weather. Now, how do they know this if it just showed itself, this novel form of it, in November? But he's confident. He goes, it may not like warm weather. It is more a cooler weather virus, and it's going to come back in the fall. But we will be better prepared then. We will have more antivirals. We will be closer to a vaccine. So, since I've rendered all of you speechless, I will continue. He said coronavirus can live, using a very, very mistaken notion, again, can live for days. And for that reason, we have to constantly disinfect all the surfaces around us and our hands and everything. But it can't live on porous surfaces as well, like cardboard boxes. So he just gave a huge thumbs up and green light to Amazon. Money is not so porous. And that means that's a push toward cashless. And then he says, in the old days, we used to offer our hand to handshake, because in the old days, this would display to the person that was approaching you that you did not have a weapon. You had no dagger or gun or anything. So you'd put out your bare hand to grasp the other guy's bare hand. He said, however, today we are armed. We're armed with a virus.
So, SofiaSmallstorm.com, obviously, get on her newsletter list, and you have AvatarProducts.com. I don't know if I'm missing anything else, but what kind of things are you recommending to people right now, or is it about the same as you've been recommending the whole time?
Well, Jaron, I would say this. If you are convinced that there is a bioweapon that's been engineered, which I'm not convinced of, we heard from Dr. Leonard Horowitz that HIV was made in Fort Detrick in a lab, and there is no HIV, and there are plenty of very, very amazing researchers like Dr. Nancy Banks, who was a medical doctor, Harvard educated, who wrote AIDS, Opium, Diamonds, and Empire. And I have to say, that's the definitive book that pretty much takes HIV apart. AIDS, Opium, Diamonds, and Empire. So Leonard Horowitz, I feel, is misled, perhaps by himself. If you feel there is a bioweapon after listening to this and other, reports that you might have read or listened to, then you should definitely arm yourself, arm your immune system. And the best thing you can do is, in my opinion, is take lots of iodine, get lots of sunshine. I have 3 different kinds of iodine on my web store, avatarproducts.com, and one of them is extremely inexpensive. It's $20 for a bottle of real nascent iodine. So that would be my recommendation if you really want to boost your health and get plenty of sunlight, which they don't give you in a hospital.
No, and you don't get that when you're staying at home and being told to stay inside either. So I know.
And I don't believe it was a bioweapon, and I just ordered some iodine from her. So you can order it even if you don't think it's a bioweapon.
Right. But I think people need to get out into the outdoors. It's fine. I don't know. We've been spending time getting our backyard ready for gardening season and being out in the front, taking walks with the dog. So I think you're right. I think sunshine's important, and I think it's always important to build your immune system, to eat healthy, and take your Restore and everything else that's Sophia offers.
let me explain something about sunshine. I wrote a recent newsletter, and my newsletter is not something, by the way, that you can just sign up for and get by email. It's done by subscription, so you can read samples. These are pretty old. I need to put some new ones up, but I haven't because I've been doing so many radio shows on newsletters. But my sofiasmallstorm.com, there's on the side margin, you'll see a newsletter tab, and you'll learn how you could get the newsletter. But sunshine is very important because it is extremely, it's integral to the manufacturing of a compound called cholesterol sulfate. And you need cholesterol to make this, and you need sunshine. And cholesterol sulfate is a cosmotrope. Cholesterol sulfate allows the red blood cells to have a very strong exterior, so they don't break apart and spill their hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen that goes to all of our cells, into the bloodstream itself. So cholesterol sulfate, as a cosmotropes confer negative charge to the things that they work with in the body. And negative charge means the presence of electrons. So one thing that we haven't talked about here is the 5G angle in Wuhan. Do you want to get into that? I don't know if I'm going to be bumped. It's 10 to the hour or so.
You've got about 4 minutes.
All right. Well, the oxygen orbital spin is supposedly changed by 5G 60 gigahertz. I have not found that recorded anywhere. I have come across one person who says that he studied it in magnetobiology. But overall, the 60 gigahertz is the preferred frequency for 5G because it is a self-cleaning frequency in that oxygen, because it cannot reorient itself in terms of the electromagnetic field that the 60 gigahertz creates, the dipolar field. Oxygen pretty much stops the transmission of the data on that wavelength. And therefore, the wavelength cleans itself and can be reused in dense deployment scenarios like urban areas. But I happen to feel that the amount of discussion we're being allowed on the health hazards of 5G is a Hegelian setup, and we're going to end up with something called Li-Fi, light fidelity. And I don't have time on this show to go into it, but Jason and Jaron and David, if we get on another show, I will explain all about Li-Fi, because it is, the light spectrum is 10,000 times the size of the radio frequency spectrum and much more appealing to the telecom world than mere radio frequencies and all of the challenges that they present.
This is for mass transmission of data, correct?
Right. Using light bulbs, using the ordinary LED light bulb, which everybody is already used to, and they're not going to bat an eye.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of familiar with that too. That's a pretty serious thing. I don't hear a lot of people addressing it either.
And you think that's coming soon?
Li-Fi is.
Why do you think the push for the LED light bulbs has been going on for the past couple of years, to the point that they're making the normal fluorescent bulbs like junk, like they blow out, so that you get frustrated and buy the LEDs.
Sometimes
and then the LEDs, they
them.
drop the prices massively compared to just a few years ago.
Right, so I was going to say, they're so cheap, and then you can't even find the other ones anymore. So you have.
But
really
do you remember?
choice.
Remember how when they didn't used to be, like they were out of control prices? They're like, yeah, I can't afford those. That'd be great, but whatever.
Well,
it's the exact opposite now.
Now it's the opposite, and they even have like PG&E discounted ones. Well, that's here in California. I know you guys have different.
I went to the Home Depot looking for. I was hoping to find the old school incandescent, bulbs for my ceiling, the recessed ones, and besides not having it, I didn't have much hope for that. A 6-pack of LED recessed floodlights was $10.
Okay, I'm going to break in, and I'm going to say that I'm affiliated with an electrical engineering company. I've been training to do home remediation, and I sell their LED bulbs, which are specially created. They are full spectrum. They don't hum, they don't flicker, and they don't harm your health. And they are on the front page, top front of my website, avatarproducts.com. So definitely get them. They're extremely efficient, and they are not harmful, and they will not have the special photodiode in them that will convey your data and kill your body off.
All right. Well, Sophia, we got about a minute left, and I really appreciate you coming on. I don't know if you want to stay for the second half. We take calls, but it doesn't look like there's very many people lining up, so it's up to you. If you have things to do, we completely understand. Or if you want to stay through the break, we can have people call in. It's all up to you. What do you want to do?
Well, I could stay for a little while. I mean, as
Okay.
you said, people disappear when I come online, so.
Well, they certainly don't allow.
With that.
It's just like Crow, man. You put Crow's name in your title, and you can forget about monetizing your videos. So,
Do you know
the same way.
he said that that's been not the case the past couple of days? That it's almost like censorship has been lifted to some degree.
Not on anything I put out, but they have not allowed any monetization on my videos for over 3 weeks. So every time, and there's a couple that are pending, right? Because there's nobody checking the videos or whatever. But we'll be right back, guys, and we'll be only on DLive and TFR. So you guys on YouTube, follow us over to DLive, and we'll see you in 2 minutes for your phone calls. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw.
Truth Frequency Radio is your number